Good morning, everyone. I tried to get to the office a minute before the NFP so we could all watch the the reaction live together. And you may or may not notice breath was mixed yesterday. We had that standard sector rotation with medical outperformed and consumer staples performed. Whatever, the AI trade is dead until it's not. Banks did well. Financials, they're considered like kind of a growthy sort of stable area, not crazy growth, but with interest rates coming down, etc. Quick, oh, looks like that. Okay, bad hombre is here. What's up, yo? Something closed.
It's the NFP, I think, just shooting up.
Okay, so at least we're not getting a big red bar. So we're going to call that a win. Unless you're a bear, in which case you're going to be mad because inflation and macro, and there's some kind of reason to be mad because the market's not rational. But if you're not a bear, and since most of the world is net long, I think most of the world was probably happy. And so here we are, basically. I guess those must be futures closing, whatever orders I had in, whatever I sold. I bought some futures yesterday during this mess. I'll talk about that in a minute. And so here we are now, we're green on the day. And so the chop zone that I identified was before this, and we'll talk about what probably is a more realistic path for today when we get there. And let's see. So yesterday in the overnight session, yeah. I don't trade futures that much, once in a while. But when I see something like I saw last night, and let's just I happen to be sitting around in my office watching the Dolphins game, which was a whole other story. And I noticed, just kind of like absentmindedly, noticed the E-mini chart above my head. And I saw I saw this. I saw this.
Doc, you were trading technicals?
No.
Whoa, new year.
No. I say in my note, as a recovering technical person, with trend lines, one is too many, 1,000 never enough. I saw the gap down to the gap fill that everybody's been yelling about since we gapped up on Thanksgiving Day or on the Wednesday before. Oh, we have to have a gap fill. We have to have a gap fill. And so we got the gap fill so everybody can party on. But the gap fill also happens to correspond, suspiciously enough, to this 6780 big ass negative gamma, customers long, 2,284 puts, but who's counting, right down there. And we wobble, we go right down to here. We undercut a little bit to the 75 where we're supposed to. We bounce before the 60-ish where we're supposed to. And then we kind of mess around in this range overnight. And 68.15 happens to be where we close. Just a coincidence that there happens to be a support, a positive gamma bar there, right? This is just, it's just a all big grand coincidence. And now we're traveling through this zone. so where do we go now? Between 68.15 and 68.40. That's where we go. It's simple. And now we can bounce between these two levels. Attraction to here, pull down to here. We can bounce between these two levels. Let's just finish the daily plan. If over 68.40, retest, reclaim, all that stuff, 68.40, 68.50 round number, expect a little extra action there just cause, then we have a negative gamma ladder up. Does that necessarily mean that we climb the ladder all the way to the moon? No, but we have a ladder. And I imagine if I looked at a chart, we'd have a gap. We'd have a something. We'd have a chart analog to that. Because although they're kind of different, we tend to have analogs between one and the other where, areas seem to fit in one. So, and, where do we stall out if we get over 50? That's an if anyway. Well, we have this at 68.70, probably a bridge too far, probably get to 60, 65. Our Monday's high was 60, 68, 60-ish. That might be a reasonable place to look for a reaction or to stop or to pull back to 50, stay in the middle of the range we've been in for 10 days, 6,800, 6,900, and leave everybody saying, what? Until tomorrow. So, to the downside, should 68.15 break, then this becomes a target again. This is still there, so I just kind of arbitrarily said 68.90. If 68.15 breaks, obviously 6,800, the round number. We expect to see some action, 68.90, little undercut. But if this doesn't V us kind of quick and get pulled back towards above 6,800, then this becomes a magnet again, the 20-day moving average, the gap fill, the 50-day moving average, all that stuff is there. Plus we have negative gamma acceleration to pull us into that. And then kind of stall there where the overnight low was, and probably have the V reversal back up. If this should break for some reason, I'm highly doubtful, but you never know. Well, then there's really, don't torture the data. We end up where we end up. Look left, find a line somewhere and say as good a line as any. 67.25, 60, whatever, somewhere in there. Now, let me just show you guys one more thing. Hold on. I kind of skewed the outlook a little bit so that you could see the pattern, but lurking right below, somebody sold 12,000 puts down here at 66.85. So we're not going to 66.85. I'm willing to say that. We're not going to 6,700. I'm willing to say that. We're probably not going to here or here, 67.50. We're probably not going there. We're probably just going to stay in the same range we've been in at the end of the day. If I get rid of this just so you can see not just you, so I can see the patterns and the shapes that make sense. That just kind of skews the eye. At least skews my eye. Maybe it doesn't skew up your eye. Whoops, I still have that in there. So 66.90 gets rid of that. And this is options depth, by the way. I have discount codes, whatever. I haven't been putting that stuff in lately. That's it. We'll talk about Vixpiration in a minute. I'm going to put my chart up in a minute. Chewy, you have your chart ready?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so show me, put it in this thing there, then I'll get rid of mine. Or I'll get rid of mine, and you can put yours in, potato.
I'm on my laptop. Not, give me 1 second.
That very typical New York Upper West Side background.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
recognize the neighborhood. That's a very typical New York background.
Yeah. I'm
And that's
not sure
considered
what.
with a view.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody
You
told
have
me
a
that
view of
coming
the
from
alley, right?
Colorado. Yeah. Uh, should be coming here. I just haven't shared on this laptop before, so 1 second. Here we go.
And we got my red candle. Let's see. Okay, well, we'll see his red candle.
This on the screen, okay?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
perfect. So first thing I'm looking for, guys, right out the gate is can we hold the 6860? These are the new this is the new contract, so please keep that in mind. This is the March contract. I want to see if we can hold 6860. And by hold, I mean, get a 15, 30-minute candle above it. I don't mind a little dip into our bounce zone for us to ride back up to our ceiling. My ceiling on this is currently 6,900-ish, where we could
And so
potentially see a
so
reject.
there's a 50-point difference, so we'll call that 6850-ish SPX. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, just about. I haven't put your I haven't had the time to put the string in for today,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
will.
I have to correct the string because I didn't correct it for the new contract yet. So
Mm, I see. Um, But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, expecting a range day in here today, maybe a little slippage to the downside, a little to the upside. However, this is kind of the range that I'm seeing. We do have VIX expiration tomorrow, so hopefully we kind of unclench a little bit, have some movement there. Um, Other than that, I think I'm a little bit more leaning upside today than I was yesterday. Um, for that to kinda come into play, I would love a little tap of my bounce zone down here.
so a pullback of from where we are now, like a 10, 15-point pullback, and then a little reaction, undercut, fail, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, and then head
Yep,
back up.
and then back up, yeah. Even there from 68.60 up to 68.87, I'd say that's a really good trade, and a safe trade just from there to there. Quite easy and quite safe.
And just curious, how long do you stay in a trade? Like, are you grabbing 2 or 3 or 5 points, or if you have a target that's far, are you just gonna kind of have? How do you parse that?
Well, I think my instinct is more than anything to instead of waiting for targets, my system helps me trail my stop well. So I I'm I'm not someone who's gonna cut the trade just because it got to my target. I'll wait until I'm stopped out in profit. Um, that gives me the ability to hold, right? Because if for whatever reason price starts to hold it to the upside, then I'm in for way more than I initially anticipated, and that's really how I make the difference on my weekly basis
Okay, so you scale in at however many contracts, and then you put your stop and trail
and
stop,
ride
leave
it
a
out.
runner, that kind of deal.
Yeah, and personally, I'm not so much of a runner person. I try to
Okay.
hold most of my position. Yeah.
Okay, so you're holding the whole.
Yeah. It depends how heavy I'm in. If I'm in
Right.
4 or 5 contracts, I wanna remove 1, at 10, 15 points. Remember, I do trade NQ, but it's more just as a security to lock in that $300 or whatever it is, and then hold the rest of the position.
Okay, cool. I'm curious. For those of you that don't know, Chewy has a whole training course system, whatever that, from what I've heard and what I've seen, because I've seen people's post their P&L, they're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And
And it's for that reason, right? We start off, call it with a small stop, and then as your trade starts to unfold, you get that validation that you are correct, giving you that almost the permission to continue holding the trade, moving your stop up and squeezing the juice out of that lemon.
okay, and I'll probably be able to twist his arm and get a Christmas, holiday, New Year's special.
Yeah, we'll do something fun for everybody.
Okay. All right. So that's it. And today we have Vol Trader here as well. I don't know if you have any graphic to share.
No, today, no graphics. I missed the first portion of you guys. So, what I found interesting is that there are no in the money calls for the zero DTE under 6780, which is kind of crazy. And also on my end, at least on my end, I can share the screen. The overnight Globex system was constantly buying futures, ES and NQ.
I'm going to find what you shared with me.
Yeah,
I'm
you
going
can
to
do
see if
that.
I can.
Yeah, that white chart with the bars
There, this one, right?
can illustrate that. Yeah. So this is a chart that has multiple data points, and specifically the purple or the darker bars are puts, and the green ones are calls, and they are scaled to the right. Now, if you can see, there are no green bars going left from 6780, which is rare. It's rare. I mean, the market is not anymore in a regime of buying the dips, so obviously you don't expect too much in the money calls. But at a ratio like this, 6780 and under, you have a ratio of 10-1. Never seen that. And without going into interpreting side of trades, so whether these puts are bought by customers, sold by market makers, and all that, that is something you do. It's kind of strange, and it's basically it's a very weak link, meaning that if we get pushed into those 6780 and under, so obviously the majority of the market maker hedging would be selling futures, and because there are no calls, it's pretty aggressive. On the other hand, the overnight touched the 6770 on the SPX and bounced to where we are now. And because of this rare ratio, where you have only puts, the longer we hold 6780, the ratio of charm will be very positive holding it. So as long as 6780 holds, it will just get even stronger as a support level because of the charm kicking in, from let's say noon and forward.
So let me explain to the people, and very kind of basically, if we're above 67, 80, 85, 90, whatever it is,
80,
toward the end of the
it's enough.
day, those
Yeah, 80
puts
is enough.
strong to zero. Market makers have to buy. If we're below 60 to zero delta, if we're below 67, 80, let's just say 60, 75, 67, 70 toward the end of the day, and we stay there, then those go from a minus 0.55, minus 0.6 delta, all the way to a zero delta, and we get slammed.
Yeah, but I'd like to refine that.
Go ahead.
It's more binary. Not that what you said is not correct, but I want to refine it in what to expect of price action. So just by holding 6780, the market will go up with no buyers, just because of the charm and the ratio of the sheer amount of puts versus calls. You can see that the put dominate all the way until 6840 or so, 5830. This means that by doing nothing, even if we all go home and they just only the market makers stay, the market will go 6830 by the end of the day with doing nothing, with no buyers. Versus if the market goes down at the open, if you guys recall, yesterday you had like a huge sell at open. The market open and flushed down very strongly. Those were basically sell orders into the opening auction of the SPX, and were pushed aggressively down. So if that would happen today, and the market would right off the open be tilted under 6780, 6787, then market makers are forced to sell a lot of futures. And that could spike to whatever 50 points lower or so, and hit those daily. Then you move to the daily time frame, basic technical analysis, you would hit some serious support there around 6750, 6700, and so on. I don't know if we get there, but so from a price perspective, with no buyers above 6780, we end the day at 6830.40 with no buyers. But if at the beginning of the market, let's say the first 1 hour, if we start dripping down under 6780, then you get mechanical selling and hedging to the downside.
Right?
Yeah.
Screwed. So somebody asked a question.
But
What is
just one more thing. What also I found interesting is that the overnight, I can share my screen for a second here. How do I do that? Share screen. Okay. How do I do that? Window. Okay, window. Yeah, entire screen. No. Sorry for that. Just a second. Window. Okay, let's share.
While he's doing that, let me get.
No,
so
here it is. Here it is.
Okay, let me see. You have a different toy up there. Okay. And somebody asked, what is the VT index? And that's
that's just Vol Trader, yeah.
That's Vol Trader's toy. So he can
explain what it is. If we're looking to the left portion, from left to right, if we're looking at chart number 3 and 4, these are the ES and the NQ. And you can see the yellow shaded areas on the bars are session, and the gray shaded are the Globex. So you can see yesterday we already got some buy signals at the end of the session. Then we dropped to what the implied SPX would be 6770. That was the low of the overnight. And the system just generated more and more buying, which in real time I found a bit uncomfortable, of course, because of everything I just said about the 6780. But the system was pretty persistent about that. It generated it on the ES and on the NQ. These arrows represent a lot of background stuff that basically monitors option skews and different ways of how I interpret the order flow and stuff like that. But it seems that there was a consensus between whoever controls the market during these times that there is no selling, because there was basically no selling. There was, market was going sideways regardless of my signals. Market was going sideways, and there was no urgency of selling, which I found strange. Not even when the public data, which is released, say, by the CBOE at around 4 a.m. Eastern, when that data is disseminated, all the automated systems that parse the data and interpret it, what takes me an hour, they do it in a second. There was no reaction, and then the next thing is that the market started going up. So it's like there is some type of, I don't know, call it what you want, some type of understanding amongst the big market makers, fund, whoever you want to call them, that nobody sold. Even though we were under 6,800, under 6,780, nobody really sold. So pretty strange. The current signal is short here into the open, but that is, a local short. I don't think it tells the story. I think the buying was pretty rare, considering the fact there are no calls. So again, to the downside, very violent, could be very violent. And to the upside, the market could just grind higher all day and settle around 68.30, 40 if nothing happens.
And what was I going to say? So, quick introduction for those of you that don't know. Vol Trader is one of those people that I met in some server once upon a time. I seem to accumulate people. I'm vocal wherever I am, and when I see other people who are vocal and don't know what they're talking about, we kind of gravitate together. So somewhere along the line, we accumulated each other and we traded side by side, in the trenches, so to speak. And correct me if I'm wrong, Vol Trader is a former market maker, futures or currency or Globex or some stuff from Europe, and now he just does what he does. He trades and he does some other businessy
Yeah,
stuff.
this was like 15 years back, even more, and it was in the European markets, not no Globex and nothing like that. It was European markets on European style options, indexes, and bonds. This was a long time ago. Most of the disciplinary aspects from those practices carry till this day because regulation didn't change a lot in terms of how things are, how market making is done. Everybody has his own sophisticated models maybe, but the core aspect of market making didn't change. So I use that until this day. I don't do any market making, but I have, my systems are basically from the point of view of the market maker, because that's what I know, and I try to infer from those practices the direction of the market.
Yeah. Okay. So getting back to the church of what's happening now, right now we had that initial reaction when the unknown became known, and so whatever vol release there was, whatever was priced into the exchange for the unknown, that became known. We kind of bounced up. That relief happened, and now we're kind of back in our regularly scheduled chop zone. Now we're just kind of back right in here, 6,800, and then we'll see what the market gives us. And I kind of see it in a very similar manner to vol trader. As long as we can stay above that big magnet there, that
6780.
negative gamma, customers long 2,284 puts here, then
Doc, this is the gamma profile of the
yeah, this is the
market maker?
gamma profile. To the left is market makers, short, customer long.
Gamma. Can you show the calls and the net calls and puts
Okay, you want to see that? Okay, so
for the market maker? Yeah.
calls there 62 and puts there's 2,284.
Oh, in the small window. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I got it.
And if we want, just for fun, I do this with my guys in the Discord, but I don't usually do it here. And sometimes these numbers are a little different until it gets updated.
But the numbers are, again, this is GEX or?
Okay, so here, in depth view, it shows you 82 calls, 2,000, if you, again, same thing, if you hover over, you see what's in there.
So the value is the net.
Net, correct.
Net, in this case, this is net. Okay, so puts will always be negative and calls will always be positive. Okay.
Well, it'll be if the market makers are short those puts, it'll be negative. Over here at 6760, market makers are long 1,000 puts. Market makers are long puts. People sold them. I was one of them. I don't see
Long
me over
puts. Okay,
so
this is basically OI. Okay.
But this is right. OI, market maker long or short. So it's OI, but we know what the OI means.
Yeah. So the color just shows the sign, but without
exactly.
hovering, we don't know if it's calls or puts. Okay.
Right. The color is the net sign. Exactly. Now I can make it one or the other. If I go back to the
so back to that trigger level, the 6780, which I was talking about before. Basically, they are short puts 6780, and what happens at 6775?
Nothing much.
But they're also short puts.
Also short puts. Also, so if below 6780, 75 overnight low, and we don't reclaim it right away, then the next area where market makers have some kind of positive gap exposure is 6760. But it's not a lot.
That's the first drop, basically.
Right. It's not a lot though, and we have the other side of the whatchamacallit, of the credit spread, let's call it, down here at 67.50. A lot's going to depend on what happens with vol, as you know, but other folks may not be kind of as fluent with it. If volatility increases, the deltas kind of spread, the delta distribution spreads, which just makes these lines not as sharp. We don't bounce quite as sharp at that line. There's more fudge area. So that's why when vol expands, these positive gamma lines
Well,
way, and the negative gamma lines, the distribution of negative widens, and we can overshoot to the downside also.
yeah. So when vol goes up, so it's better to look at it from a cluster point of view rather than a single strike.
Yes, exactly. And somebody made the observation, yes, this is net positions, not net gamma. And the reason I like to look at net positions and not net gamma is because, okay, right now, the gamma that's this far away is not going to be very much. But I want to know where it is in case we start going up, where the movement is. I can project the path. I want to know where the landmines are. If there's a landmine 5 miles away, okay, fine. But I don't want to not see that landmine on my map. Now, if I change it to gamma, it's going to show a similar distribution. It's going to show a similar distribution. But what's up at 68.90 kind of gets muted, and it's the 68.45.50, even though we're this far away, it's still a pretty significant bar, which just kind of indicates that should we be able to fight our way through this, and look at how big the 68.20 is.
Yeah.
We have to fight through this to really be able to get moving. But this is negative gamma, so it's a potential magnet and a potential push down.
Yeah, we did overnight, like the pre-market, the implied SPX did trade 68.35, I think.
So that's where we are. Let me just pull up an option chain like I like to do. I'm just going to leave this alone. That's a 112. That's a totally different thing. Those of you that are in the theta junkie world know about the 112s. What's his name? Tom King is a big champion of it. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I always have a couple on. I always make money with them. I haven't had a loser yet in 5 years, but I can't trade them aggressively. I'll trade them by the book, which shouldn't surprise anybody. What do I got here? Here's just a little, what do I have here? Oh, looks like I have a fly. I have a put fly. Yeah, I have some kind of asymmetrical fly here.
Oh, this is what you did when we talked about.
Yeah. And here I have an asymmetrical put fly that looks like it's doing its job.
Yeah, you took that down spread and you converted it to something else.
Yeah. So, but for today's 0 DTE, I hear that this account, I guess, trades small, a couple contracts. This is kind of like just a play experimental, whatever. So today is the 16th, right? Right. So I don't know, call me crazy, but if I wanted to be, let's just say 67.20, expected move of 40-ish, we're at 80, let's say 90. I don't know, that looks pretty good to me. Selling at 67.20, 67.05. That looks pretty good to me. I'm willing to do that. Now you can play it with a fly for credit if you wanted. So let's just play around. Let's just think out loud here. Let me move this whole structure down. So we know we have that 6780 as a magnet, right? Overnight low, et cetera, et cetera. So we know we have that 6760 where market makers are long. So oops, I didn't build it right. $133. That's a debit. No, I ain't paying them. I can kiss my butt. 013. This would be 2, not 1. Quantity 1 less. Right. That's still way too expensive, so I'm not doing that. No, oh no, we should have 3 here. 220 credit. I don't mind that. Or over here, if you want a free trade. Or over here, if you want to catch the convexity. Something like that. I might put in something like this and see how it plays. I have a big wide tent over here. I got a 15-point tent before trouble starts. Another way to play it is with a condor style structure. Something like that, 75-cent debit, if you just kind of want to play the downside, or add a little juice in here and get a little 40-cent credit saying that this is going to hold. You know, any of these structures I think are fine. I don't think we go down there anyway, but it's just kind of a way to have something there just in case. To the upside. What do we like to the upside? So Vol Trader is a smart guy, and he thinks 68.40 even if nothing happens at all. All right. So let's just give it a little extra room. 35, 45, 55 for 80-cent debit. That's probably not bad. I'm going to play it straight here and do something like that. Or you could do a 30, 40, 50. But I'd rather not risk the overshoot. Do something like that. Now, for those people that don't like to sell 20, 15, don't like to sell that wide, and if I were looking for an iron condor, and if I were in that school, I'd probably want to look, again, it depends on your risk tolerance. Maybe a 60, 65 on top. And 40, 45 on bottom. That gets you 90 cents. That's not horrible. I might do something like that. You could even, if you're one of those that like to third the width of the spread, 60, 55 on the bottom, and you have to go kind of close-ish on top. You'd have to go something like 55, 60 on. You have to go something like this to get roughly a third the width of the spread. Some people like to do that. That's kind of a pretty standard risk reward kind of thing that people like to do with iron condors. And I don't know that I would do this. This isn't a bad trade either. I manage them differently. A lot of people like to put the iron condor on in one piece and take it off in one piece. I'll typically take off legs. So anyway, that's how I see the trading. Somebody, a buddy of mine who's been on vacation, who I've been trading with for a number of years, Market Literate, I think is his screen name, was saying, people want to see trades. They don't want to, so I'm putting in some trades. People want to see trade ideas. And it's true. It's true. At the end of the day, we were doing this to make money. And so that's what I see going on. Any questions, comments, trade ideas anyone wants to mention? Vol Trader looks like Vol Trader left. He went to go make some money. And I'm going to try to bring more people on. I've kind of contacted some people and they've all agreed to do it. I just haven't worked out the mechanics. There's my boy. He's here. He's lurking. And thank you for the ideas on how to make this more useful for folks. All right, I'm out of here, and trade careful, trade safe, make a lot of money, and feed the goats.